Hey, we're live. So today on Authors and Illustrators, Children's Book Authors and Illustrators, we have Heather L. Montgomery. Right, Heather?
That's
And
right. How are you doing?
I don't know Heather all that well, but I'll tell you this. I was at a conference and I was on a panel with her. I was on a panel with Brad Herzog, Roland Smith, Heather Montgomery, and me. And I didn't really know her. And somehow we were texting back and forth, but I didn't really know what was going on. No one really told us what we were doing in the panel. But when it was her time to speak, I was like, holy cow. Wow. And,
we had some fun that day.
We really had fun, yeah. And all you kids out there and teachers, I think you're just going to love her books, you know? So welcome, Heather, onto the show. And thanks for coming. By the way, we'll tell the audience, I'm in Boston, Massachusetts right now. Actually, I'm in South Boston. And Heather, where are you?
I live in northern Alabama. So I live right on the Tennessee-Alabama line, which is pretty cool because like my neighbor literally is in Tennessee and here I am in Alabama. But you know, the funny thing is—
Muscle Shoals? Near Muscle Shoals?
Muscle Shoals is to the west, about an hour and a half. I live right in the middle of the state line. Like if you were in Nashville and you drove to Birmingham, you'd pass my house. In fact, people who've done that have probably seen this really cool rocket that's at the rest area because, you know, North Alabama, we're like amazing rocket science here.
Either the rocket or the Jack Daniels factory.
Yeah, one or the other. Jack is over in Tennessee, right? And the rocket, we're in Alabama, even though they do some rocket work there in Tennessee too. Yeah, it's great. So I live right on the line. And as you can see, I'm in my outdoor office today, more comfortable for me than the conference room we were in before.
I see. Hey, tell me, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Virginia, over in a little place called Gloucester County. It's not too far from Yorktown. It's an amazing place to be, right? I grew up running around in the woods. I like to get outdoors, and I've always liked to get outdoors. And I was right there on the Chesapeake Bay, so we used to get out on the water sometimes and go crabbing. We were talking earlier about lobsters from your area. Never done that, but
I'll trade you lobsters for blue crabs any day. How's that?
Oh yeah. Let me think about that. I like my blue crabs pretty much. Now, I don't have any blue crabs here in North Alabama, but crawdads, yeah, we got those.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
By the way, I have a son who lives in Alabama, but he's 4 hours from you. He's down in Fort Rucker, way down there, down by.
Down south. You know, we call. I don't know how far south Fort Rucker is. Is it south of Montgomery?
Yes, 2 hours south.
Okay, we call that LA, Lower Alabama. It's a whole different state down there, right? It is. It's just the way it is. But we like it.
Tell us about yourself. Whatever we love to hear stories about authors. And so, did you think when you were in 4th grade you were going to be an author, or did you think in 8th grade you'd be an author? Are you one of those people? I didn't start writing.
Have a clue. Wait, did you think you were going to be an author when you were that young? Because I sure didn't.
No, not at all.
I didn't think.
I was mostly afraid to write. I was afraid of what other kids would say about what I wrote. I was afraid to write, really. You know.
Yeah, I hear you. So, me too.
I started when I was 32, when my kids were in diapers. That's when I started.
Really cool. Yeah, I didn't start until I had gray hair. Literally, I did not figure it out. And man, what was I missing? This stuff is awesome. Like, I had not a clue that it was cool. Me, I love science. I love nature. I love to go outside and ask these questions. I didn't get it, that was a research. And research is my jam. I love it. Now it's my life and I get to do all the fun stuff. Like, it's my job to go out and find the coolest, weirdest, wackiest stuff. You know, I mean, that's pretty fun, right? So that's what I get to do all the time. But
so when you were a kid, you were a curious kid, huh?
I was always a curious kid. I was always go out and, you know, do stuff outdoors. But the thing is, I didn't like bugs when I was a kid. Well, specifically, I didn't like spiders. I'll tell you what
Yeah.
happened to me. And say now I write about all these weird, wacky stuff. But when I was a kid, I was so scared of spiders that for a long time I'd wanted to go to camp. And so I finally got old enough to go to camp, and I was so excited to go to camp. Yay, yay, yay. And then I found out once I was at camp, there were spiders in the bathrooms because the bathrooms were outhouses. And I was so freaked out, I didn't even want to go to the bathroom. That's not a good thing. It makes you sick in the tummy if you don't go to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
So fortunately, I had a mother who understood a little bit about fear. And the thing she did, she didn't necessarily love spiders either, but she started to do some things that now I realize were kind of sneaky. Like at breakfast, she'd point out the window where there was a beautiful spider web. We had this big, huge window, right?
Yeah.
And she just pointed how beautiful it was. There wasn't a spider in it. It was just a beautiful web. And then, you know, a little while later, maybe there was a spider in it, but she still got me to look at it, right? And little by little, she showed me there wasn't anything to be scared about. And now I pick up spiders in my hand and I show them to kids and I teach about them because they're really, really cool creatures. I just didn't have kids. But that's what happens when you grow up. You learn things about yourself and you learn new ways to explore the world. And I love that. So.
Well, I was told by someone that the ocean was my classroom and that I didn't really realize it. But when I was growing up, the ocean was my classroom and I was learning everything about nature through the ocean, you know?
Yeah, right.
In fact, the first book I wrote was called the Ocean Alphabet Book. I have about 20 ocean books. When people ask me, I say I'm really an ocean guy. I grew up on the ocean, you know?
20 ocean books. That's amazing. I had no idea you had that many on that topipic. Woo. So
well, I have one on crabs. I have one on lobsters. I have one lobster versus crab. I have sea mammals, you know?
Isn't it great to get to like research the stuff you're interested in? Like,
by the way, I have to ask you something because I have a hot tip for you. Have you ever been to the Harvard Museum of Natural History?
I have not.
I'm telling you, if you ever come to Boston, you have to go over to the Harvard Museum of Natural History with me. They have every mammal in the world stuffed.
So
I know it doesn't
cool.
sound good, but animals that are 400 years old, you can't really keep them alive, you know?
No, that's awesome. You know, I have an entire chapter in this book, Something Rotten, A Fresh Look at Roadkill, that occurs in a museum of natural history, just like that. And in my upcoming book, yeah, I've got one too, because museums are amazing places. I actually got to write the text for a museum. So when you go in a museum, you got all those signs, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever think about the fact that somebody gets to write them?
Yeah. So that was cool, man.
Yeah, I had that opportunity. Usually when they write in a museum, when they write for a museum, every room has its own team of people and they like write, and then there's one writer here and one writer. This museum decided they wanted the whole museum to have a common voice. And so I was the writer for every single room of the museum.
Wow.
Now, it's not.
When can I go there?
Oh, anytime you come to Alabama, it's in North Alabama. It's called the Cook Museum of Natural Science. It's really a pretty cool place to go. It opened up last May.
What city is that in?
It's in Decatur, Alabama.
Yeah.
So it's not too far from Huntsville.
I've visited schools in Decatur.
Yeah.
Do you know Reba Wads? Do you know Reba Wadsworth?
I don't.
She was a principal in Decatur.
Cool.
And then she taught college at Athens State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I don't know. We'll
Did
have
you
a
know
connection somewhere.
you know Willie and Glenda who own the Learning Tree store?
I do. I do. Yeah.
Willie and Glenda took me all over Alabama. People say to me, "How do you know so much about Alabama?" They must have taken me to 100 schools in Alabama, you know?
Well,
but go ahead, keep going.
You know, as I say, most people don't know about Alabama, and honestly, I didn't either. I was in college and my parents moved to Alabama. I was like, see ya, because I just didn't know about it. And you know, a funny thing happens when we don't know much about something or some place or someone.
Yeah.
We're kind of like hesitant about it, right? We don't just like reach out and say, hey.
Yeah.
And that's how I was about Alabama. I wasn't so sure. But then I came down here and oh my goodness, it's phenomenal. Yeah. Did you know, because I love nature stuff, did you know that if you rank all the states in terms of their biodiversity, in terms of how many different species of plants and animals live there,
Yeah.
Alabama's one of the top states? And
Really?
most people wouldn't think that, right? Because, well, who's ever heard Alabama, right? And Alabama nature.
Is
And the
that 'cause
states that were behind are things like California and Texas. Now, I want you to think about how big those states are. And then
wow.
little teeny Alabama. Yeah, right.
It's because it's warm and it has the Tennessee River, I imagine.
There's
You
a
know?
number of reasons, and there's a whole science to understanding why the state is so unique and why we have all that. And yeah, part of it has to do with the water, fresh water.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we got amazing rivers, amazing geology. Rocks are awesome here in this state. So there's a couple reasons, and we're kind of at the intersection.
I forget. Alabama, the bottom of the ocean at one time.
It sure was.
Yeah.
In fact,
Because I see those when you're driving down the highway, I see those layers. And I always think I'd love to see what's in those layers, you know?
you should get out and pull some fossils out of them because there are fossils in many of those layers. In fact, right in my backyard here, I can go out and I can find ancient seashells and other ancient creatures. And I'm all the way in the North Alabama. It takes me 7 hours to drive to the coast. But yeah, we've got the ancient.
Isn't it amazing?
It is amazing. Talk about other amazing things. You want to look at some amazing stuff?
Sure.
Because I like questions. In fact, that's almost always where my curiosity starts.
How old were you when you published your first book?
How old was I?
Yeah. Am I allowed to ask that?
You can ask that. I don't really think in age that much. Let's see. I guess I would have been just about 40.
Wow.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't figure this stuff out like gray hair. And I started going gray at 30. But here's a question.
I forgot to ask you this. Were you a teacher then?
Oh, good question.
You're a natural, first of all. When I saw you in front of an audience, you're a natural teacher.
Well, thank you.
Like you had the teacher spellbound, right?
I am a teacher.
And Roland Smith and I were also spellbound, like, we have to follow her.
We just had fun. That's all. See, the thing is, I used to run an environmental education center. So school groups would come out and stay for 3 days or a week. It's called McDowell Environmental Center. And I love that. So we just go out into the woods and that's where we learn all our stuff. But it's kind of like when you're out in the woods, you learn by accident because there's just the coolest stuff out there, right? So I taught outdoors for many, many years. And then I also taught in the classroom for a while. I'm spoiled. I get to teach outdoors. Teaching indoors is hard after that. So I really respect classroom teachers because they do so much amazing work inside the confines of a classroom. So I'm really impressed by that. So yes, I am an educator at heart. And by training, I have a master's degree in environmental education, a bachelor's in biology. And that's why when I find something weird and wacky like this, I start to ask questions. And, I bet some of the people who are listening right now, I bet they have some questions too. And they're welcome to throw those into the chat. But, or I just wonder, do you have questions about this, Jerry? What are you wondering about?
I'm a little stumped by it, but can I make a guess?
Yeah, you can guess.
Is it the bottom of a deer skull?
Good guess. Now, what's interesting to me? When we find something like this, something weird in nature, almost always our first question is a what question. Now, a what question is an okay question, right? Because our mind wants to know what it is. But what happens to my mind is sometimes I get stuck on the what questions. So what I'd love is if we go beyond the what questions. So I want to know, why are these things up here like this? They're really kind of weird. And you know what? They kind of remind me of antlers or something like that, right? Like a snail antennae, or their little eyes that stick out. I want to know, why is that end different than that end, right?
Yeah.
Do you have other questions? What else are you curious about?
I would guess that this end That end right there that you're pointing at me, that looks like a attachment to a vertebrae.
Maybe, right? So you're maybe thinking about things you've seen before, vertebrae, part of an animal body, right? And you may be thinking, oh, that looks like that. Someone in the chat asked, why is it flat at the bottom? That's a great question. See how flat it is? I mean, that side's not flat. Somebody wants to know, is it an alligator mouth? Yeah, it kind of looks like chunk. It does, right? That's what it looks like to me.
It looks like the roof of a mouth, yes.
It does.
Yeah.
I also wonder, can you see those really neat little holes all in it? I wonder what those are for, right? Like there's tons of holes there, and those are kind of curious, but they're not the same as this hole, right? It's a different kind of hole. And then, over there, there's even some different kind of holes. So I'm wondering about those holes and what they're for, and why does it have so many different holes? You see how this happens? Like one question gets to another question, which keeps going, so oh my gosh. And then there's another hole back there that's even different still, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's different holes. Yeah, I wonder, like, why does it sound like that, right? I wonder what it smells like. Interesting. Smells kind of like mothballs, to tell you the truth, but that may be because I had it in a bag of nature goodies. Wonder what else is in our bag of nature goodies.
Okay.
Here we go. Oh, something else to be curious about. What are you wondering about that? People who are out there, please brainstorm them. Throw in some questions, ask some questions. It really helps if you ask them out loud, right? Because one thing that happens when you ask a question out loud, the people around you, they go, huh?
Can I see the front teeth? Can I see the front teeth?
Oh, yeah, so,
It has canine teeth.
Oh my, check that out. Yeah, so you've got some identification of those parts right there. They're really long. I want to know, why are they so much longer than these teeth, right? I mean, and look at that shape, right? I want to know, wait, can my canine teeth ever grow that long? Yeah, I wonder, yeah. And I mean, my front teeth are not that much shorter than my canines. And why is it so different? I wonder these things, right? Yeah. Somebody asked, why is it broken? That's a great question. That's thinking like a storyteller, right? Do you notice there's one side like that and the other side? Ooh.
Diagomatic arch.
Yes, that's the scientific label, the diagomatic arch. That's that piece right here. You can feel it in your own self, right? It's the part that kind of protects your eyeballs.
Hey, I'm a guy who writes alphabet books. I'm always looking for a Z.
Z words are awesome, right? I want to know, like, why did that happen, right? How did that happen? This is how I think. And sometimes it turns into books like these behind me. I'm going to show my screen if that's all right.
That's
We're going to take a little look at some of the stuff I've been doing and thinking about.
Are you going to tell us what the skull was?
Oh, well, let's leave that question out there for a little while.
All right.
Sometimes I like it when questions percolate.
You have a question, ready? Diana King asked, is it an alligator mouth?
I know, right? That's a great question. I love that question. When we start asking those kinds of questions, it makes us think, how would I know if it's an alligator mouth? It makes us think, what would an alligator's mouth look like? And how can I tell if it wasn't an alligator's mouth? It might make me think, what size is an alligator mouth? These are the things that happen once we start to pay attention to nature. And sometimes it can turn into something amazing. It could turn into a scientific discovery. It could turn into a personal discovery. Sometimes it could turn into a book. But
Susan Hutchins from Colorado. Susan Hutchins from Colorado says, Heather is so much fun to listen to. I agree, Susan. That's why I called her up. And Diana says, maybe the side holes are nasal passages.
Oh, I like that hypothesis, right?
The holes I saw,
educated
where nerves went through. Okay, your show. Maybe. Keep going.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say that, like, her guess, she's got a guess, but it's actually based on some information, right? And that's what's cool about science, is you can have a guess and then you can look for the information, for the clues that might help you figure out, wait, is my guess right or is it not right? And then sometimes it just ends up giving you more questions. So that's what I want to talk about today as we go. Jerry, can you see my screen?
Yes. By the way,
All right.
Ellie from Texas said, "Why is it broken?"
Yeah,
What?
that's what I'm talking about. Ellie, you must be thinking like a storyteller. You want to know the story behind that bone. And that's a cool way to think. When I get outdoors and I find questions, they take me places. And sometimes they take me to write books. I write weird books. I like wacky books, you know, just strange things, right?
I think your books are totally normal.
Well, see, that's the thing. I write books about what I'm curious about. And that's why I think it's weird and wacky, because that's what I like. I'm curious about bugs that kind of act like mommies and daddies. And I'm curious about little critters in the ocean, little kids in the ocean. How do they grow up? And I'm curious about things that get hit on the road. It's kind of a sad thing, but it's actually an opportunity to discover something amazing. And I want to tell you a little bit about these books today and some of my other books, but mostly I want to get you thinking. I want to get you asking questions because, well, then maybe someday I'll be very fortunate and get to read a book written by one of our listeners.
Yeah.
So let me tell you about this. If I can get my screen to work right.
Yep, it looks great for me.
There we go. Oh, the brand new book that's not even out yet. Coming in September, and it's just now available for pre-order. Yeah, Who Gives a Poop? The Surprising Science from One End to the Other. And let me tell you, I had no idea where the questions would lead in this one. You can imagine there's some crazy places they could lead. I mean, here we're on Earth Day. We got to talk about the fact that you can use poop to save species. You can use poop to save human lives. You can use poop, well, to fuel the future. You can even use poop, some college students figured out, you can use poop to make a tool. If you're going all the way to Mars and you're halfway there and you forgot your wrench, it's going to be a problem. But not if you've got a fresh supply of poop, because guess what? From poop, you can grow bacteria. And from bacteria, you can grow plastic. And from plastic, you can make a wrench. And it's pretty phenomenal, right? How cool is that? I mean, who would ever have thought to do that, right? But if you think about it, when you're on your way to Mars, you got a problem with all the the waste you produce. We call it waste, but hey, it's powerful stuff. You could actually turn it into something. I mean, you can't get rid of it very easily, and you wouldn't want to get rid of it because it's useful stuff. So very surprising stuff happens when you start asking questions like, what could you actually do with poop? Now, I'm going to tell you a story about another book that started with a question.
Is that your hand?
I was running. Say that again.
Is that your hand?
That is, in fact, my hand.
Whoa.
I'll tell you the story. I was running down the road here, just down the hill here, a little country lane. I actually ran from Alabama all the way into Tennessee that day. And I saw a very sad thing, a rattlesnake that had been hit by a car. And my heart went out to that rattlesnake because it did not deserve to die, right? I mean, it just wanted some heat. That's all it was asking for. But my head also turned on because I had a question that I didn't quite understand. And you may have heard this, and you probably know the answer, Jerry, because you've done all kinds of cool research, but I didn't understand it. You know how sometimes you read an answer in a book and you just don't get it, but you keep reading because you're supposed to read to the end of the book. Yeah, that's what had happened. I wondered, when a rattlesnake goes to shut its mouth, how come it doesn't bite itself? I mean, those teeth are long, right? Those fangs. And I was like, whoa, whoa, how does it not bite itself? So running down the road, that question's like, bing, 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 bing. Heather, how come, how come, how come? And so I found myself running right back to that rattlesnake and standing there looking down at it thinking, there's only one way to figure out the answer. Now, don't try this at home, guys. I am a naturalist. I am trained in how to handle snakes. But even I was nervous about this because even I know that a dead rattler can still envenomate you. Its muscles are ready. Its venom glands are still full. So I was very careful when I handled that snake. I picked it up and I opened it and I closed it. And I opened it and I closed it. It was phenomenal what happened. Its teeth flung out and then they folded. And then they flung out and they folded. It just blew my mind. That thing that I had read about that I didn't really pay attention to, all of a sudden started to make sense. And as I did that, I saw something else in the mouth. And that led to an entire day of my mind just being blown about how a snake's body actually works. And then I started to wonder, wait, I know a lot about snakes, and yet I've learned so much from looking at this one roadkill snake. I started to wonder, do other people ever look at roadkill and learn from it? And that became this book. That's the time that I went and visited a natural history museum and spent a ton of time learning about phenomenal things that they had discovered, all from roadkill. Because those animals' lives are gone, but we don't necessarily have to waste them. In fact, one lady discovered contagious cancer. She discovered by looking at a roadkill Tasmanian devil that they had a cancer that was spreading from devil to devil to devil. And in fact, that's one of the reasons that they're on their way to extinction. But because of that, because we now know that, maybe we can turn it around. That's the power of asking questions. She wanted to know why is there this tumor in its snout? And that question led to this amazing discovery. There's power in questions. So I'm going to flip the screen and there's going to be another picture. And I want you guys, whoever's listening, I want you to think of some questions. What is it you're curious about? What do you want to know when you see this weird thing? Go. I'm going to give you just a minute to do it.
You want me to ask a question?
Sure, you can ask some questions too. Go for it, Jerry. What do you got? It's okay if they're not, great.
Are those earwig babies?
Good question. Excellent question. What else are you curious about?
Did they hatch from those eggs?
I like it. I like it. Some people might wonder, where are they? You might wonder, why are they white? You might wonder, oops, sorry. They might wonder, what in the world is that on that larger one's back? There's little things that look like wings, kind of, right? You might wonder, is this something you can find in your backyard? These are the kinds of questions I wonder when I find stuff. Now, I can't see the chat, so there might be some questions coming in on the chat, and that's fine.
It says, Betsy Allison says, what are the babies called?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's my friend Betsy. I love it. Yeah, that's a great question. We always want to know what things are called. It helps us to have language. What other questions do people have?
Is the mom protecting the young ones?
Oh, I love it. And anything else in that list?
Jackie Hobson says, are they beneficial or a pest?
I love that question. See, this is what happens when we start asking questions. We get into deeper things, right? That question has to do with how we value that creature. And that's a powerful question. We could have a good discussion about that. I'll tell you a story about these creatures. This is not my picture. This is not the day that I saw this, but it happened looked just like that. I was out in the woods with my friend, Carrie, and her son. And he and I love bugs, but Carrie, not so much. And her daughter's not so excited about bugs either. So anyway, we were out in the woods and I turned over this log and these crazy creatures were underneath. And it was so cool. I was like, oh, Zachary, how cool is that? That's awesome. And Carrie was like, ooh, no, thank you, ooh. And I was like, oh, look, Zach, it's a mommy. It's a mommy earwig. And my friend was like, no, it's not a mom. I was like, oh, Zachary, did you know that when those eggs were first laid, that mommy was worried about them being dirty because the fungus that lives in the ground can be bad for them? So she gives them a bath every single day. And my friend Carrie was like, what? Are you serious? And I said, yeah. Did you know, Zachary, that those little kids, they're hungry. And that mommy, she goes out into the woods, she finds their favorite food and she brings it back. And my friend Carrie was like, she stepped closer. She's like, really? And then I said, and did you know, Zach, that those little teeny nymphs, those little guys, when they start to grow just a little bit, they start to get energetic and they start to leave the nest, but it might not be safe. So the mommy goes out and brings them back, just like your mom does when your little sister gets too close to the road. And at that point, my friend Carrie was like, oh, that's so sweet. I realized right there that something had happened. I realized.
By the way, Heather.
Yeah.
Those are at the beach at the ocean.
Are they?
I've never seen babies and I've never seen the eggs, but we have those. They're all over the place on the East Coast.
Yeah, there's a lot of different species of them, and some like the ocean, some like to live in really sandy soil. One of the reasons I think maybe is because the soil drains and that fungus that can, be a problem for the eggs. It's not such a problem when it drains like that. Cool. That moment.
Here's another question. Ready? Lynette Richaud says, which part is the head? Well, the head is where the antennas are coming out of.
Yeah.
The head are where the antenna.
Sometimes.
The back of those tooth pinchers.
Right. It's a good question because it makes us pay attention to detail, right? A good question.
It's a strange bug because the pinchers are on the tail. Not strange, but it's different.
It's strange to us, right? And I think that's maybe why many times we're fearful of insects, because they look different than we do, and we're not used to all their body parts, right? That's exactly why I wanted to write this book, because I wanted to show that we have a parallel with these creatures. Now, not all insects act like parents, but some of them do. And to me, that parallel helped us realize that all living beings have certain needs and that we have some commonalities. And I think that's a pretty powerful lesson. So it turned into this book, all from experience. It's called Bugs Don't Hug, Six-Legged Parents and Their Kids, right? Who would ever think of six-legged parents, right? But that's the way I think. And it starts with my questions, like, what is that creature and why is it there? And how come there are eggs and how come there are nymphs? And why don't all insects hang out with their kids, right? These are the kinds of questions that I ask, and they turn into discoveries.
All right, are you ready for this one?
Sure.
This is maybe a wise guy question. Marie Smith says, has she ever seen Bigfoot? And does she believe in Bigfoot?
That's a great question. I have not seen Bigfoot, and I have not even seen evidence of Bigfoot, but I got to write about Bigfoot in this book It's called The Case of the Missing Arctic Fox and Other True Animal Mysteries. Because I love mysteries, right? When you see something in nature like a footprint that could be Bigfoot, that's evidence of something. And my mind wants to solve it, right? My mind wants to go, wait, what is that? Is it Bigfoot? Is there such a big thing as Bigfoot? What's our evidence? So for example, if you look at the screen right now, you'll see this crazy little weirdo, right? This happened one day when a bunch of my friends and I, some teacher friends and I, were out on a boat and we were trawling and pulling up all kinds of cool stuff. And there was a shark and there was a ray and there were fish flopping everywhere and all kinds of crabs. And they were really cool. But you know me, the one who thinks a little differently, I took some water, a little water sample, and I put it under the microscope. And I saw stuff like this guy. And I was like, whoa, what is that? And why does he have that thing over there? And why are those things like that? And how come? And would that hurt? And it just went crazy. My brain just went crazy with questions because I've trained myself to ask questions and not to stop if I don't know an answer. No, I just kept going and going and going.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is that a crab?
That is in fact a kid crab. When I discovered that that was a juvenile, a kid crab, and wait, I grew up with crabs. I know what crabs are. I didn't even know that that's what a kid crab looked like. I said, wait a second, let me look into this. And I discovered a whole world of amazing creatures in the ocean that go through metamorphosis. And kids, we all know metamorphosis. You know, we learn about the butterflies and the frogs. They're awesome. But wait a second. All of these other amazing creatures go through metamorphosis, like this dude right here on the cover of this book called Little Monsters of the Ocean, Metamorphosis Under the Waves. So I decided to write a whole book to showcase these weirdos because I know, right? You'll have to read the book to figure it out. Ha, ha, ha. I'll give you a hint. He eats jellyfish stingers. A creature that eats jellyfish stingers and survives, right? Pretty amazing. I talked to the scientist who studied and figured out how he survives that. But let me go a little deeper and tell you a story about one day. This whole questioning thing didn't wait for me to be grown up. I didn't figure out that I wanted to write about these things until I grew up. But the idea of asking questions and being curious started when I was a kid. One day, I was hanging out on my deck. Not this deck, because I lived in Virginia then, but same idea. I think I like to hang out on decks. We were playing cards, right? And I was playing cards with this guy who always beat me. Oh my gosh. When I got a joker in my hand, I was so excited because I had lots of points and I was going to win the game. I got so excited, I dropped the cards. And that joker, the one that I really needed to win the game, went right through the wooden slats and disappeared. But I knew how to solve that. I put my cards down on the table and I went down underneath the deck and I said, hey, just wait a minute. I'm going to go get my cards, right? Well, I went down underneath the deck and then I promptly forgot about the game because I saw something that made me curious. And even as a child, I want to say I was probably in about 4th grade, even that young, I knew to pay attention. And so this is what I saw. Now you may know what this is, but I didn't. So I want to tell you the story about what happened when I saw these weird holes. Now they were about this big and about that deep. And they were all over the ground, only underneath the deck. I'd never seen them in my yard or the garden or any place else. So I wanted to know what made those holes. So I did what any young scientist does. I got down and I observed a little more closely. So I got on my hands and my knees, and there I saw an ant. But what you might not be able to tell from the picture there, Jerry, is that ant is, he's dead. And when I saw one dead ant, I started to look around to see if there were any other. And there were. There was a dead ant, dead ant, dead. There were dead ants all over the place. Oh my goodness. I was like, oh my gracious, what's killing the ants? I wanted to know. And then as I observed a little closer, I noticed there seemed to be a connection. I only found the ant skeletons, because that's really what they were, exoskeletons, only near the holes. So I started to make a little hypothesis in my head, one of those educated guesses based on some information. My hypothesis that somehow the holes were killing the ants. But I didn't know how that could be. So young scientific mind decided to set up a little experiment. Here. You may have a hypothesis too. You know what? I'm going to just be quiet for just a second. I'm going to let people share their hypothesis with each other now.
What do you think? We don't have those in New England that I know of.
Interesting.
I think I know what it is,
All right.
but I'm keeping my mouth shut.
I like it. I like it. You want to let people see the mystery.
Can I ask
So
a question?
hang on to the questions for now. I will
Okay.
come back to them. And I love that people are adding the questions, but I want to keep going. So keep throwing them down. Keep throwing those questions out there. I'm going to keep going. So you see what I saw that day. I took a stick and I said, what if I pretended to be an ant? I could do that. I could pretend to be an ant. And I could walk along the soil with my little stick ant. And I said, if I were a stick ant and I came to an edge of a hole, well, I'd be curious, right? An ant's going to want to know if there's any food in there. So the little ant, I had the ant look over the edge of the hole. And you know what happened? That sand just collapsed because it was very soft and very powdery. And it just started to slide. And I thought, well, if I'm an ant, I'd be like, ah, oh, sliding all the way to the bottom. And so I said, well, I got to make my stick do that. So I made my pretend ant slide all the way to the bottom of the hole. And that is when it happened. Out of the ground, two big sharp stabby things came right up and grabbed the stick. I was like, there's a monster. There's a monster underneath the ground. What is it? I had to know. You know that kind of thing when you just have to know? So I dug it up. And this is what I discovered. Oh my goodness, this crazy creature. It had these big stabby things out the front and had all kinds of hair around the back ends, and I didn't know what it was. So to my second favorite place in the world, my first being nature, my second, the library. And the librarian helped me discover this creature. And that is what eventually turned into a book. When I first wanted to write for kids, I remembered this experience. I thought all the way back to that crazy creature, this creature that actually stabs the ant, and he spits into the ant, and his spit turns the ant's innards into gush, and then those big stabby things on the front end, they become like straws. He slurps all the goosh out of the ant, and then this kid does something kind of rude. I know none of our listeners would do this, but when he's done with his little ant milkshake, he tosses his trash right out the front door. And that's kind of like a litter bug. I mean, like, actually, it is a litter bug, not even kind of. It's a bug that litters. I'm like, oh, that's rude, right? So I had this idea, well, if there's one bug that's rude, maybe there's other bugs that are rude out there. And so I started to write, and I tried to write about it. You could try this. That would be a cool project, is try to write that story in your own words. But I wrote, and I'll be honest, way back in 2006 when I was first starting, I thought that a book had to rhyme. I thought it was the best way to write. I'm not good at rhythm and rhyme. It was terrible. And then I thought I had to write it as a fictional story. It was awful. I can't even stand to read it anymore. And then, oh, that was in 2007. And then I learned some more and some more and some more. And I decided in 2008, oh, I should write it as poetry. Can you see this is a shape poem? Like it's supposed to be the shape of the hole with the creature in the bottom. not my thing. I wrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it. And 11 complete, I don't mean 11, let me check the spelling versions. I'm like 11 completely different approaches later. In 2014, I sold it to Scholastic and they wanted to change the title. That's okay, because it became, oh, more revisions. I forgot about more revisions and more revisions. It became How Rude, 10 Real Bugs Who Don't Mind Their Manners. See, kids, something you discover today could turn into a book, right? And if you can go outside, you can discover stuff, but maybe you can't go outside right now. I bet there's something curious in your house. I bet in the attic or in the basement or even in a corner, there might be some creepy crawly just waiting for you to explore. I want to tell you one more quick story before we go. And that has to do with this creature. It was a sad day when I was driving along and I saw a coyote that had been hit by a car. And I pulled over because I've learned that animals that are on the side of the road attract other animals to the road, and then sometimes those animals get hit. So I wanted to remove the animal from the side of the road so no other animals would get hit. And I pulled it all the way off there into the edge of the woods. And then I started doing something else that I do that's kind of a little odd. I pulled my scissors out and I cut a bit of his tongue out. Oh, it was so disgusting. But I did it for important scientific reasons. You see, there's a scientist at Princeton and her job is to study coyotes and how coyotes are spreading throughout the eastern United States. But she needs some information, she needs some evidence, she needs some data. And to get that, she needs DNA from coyotes all across the Southeast. And so I've been supplying her with that. So this scientist is gonna learn the story of this coyote. But I realized something that day. I'm gonna pack that little bit of tongue up and I'm gonna ship it off to her. And I'm not gonna know that coyote's story anymore. So as I was packing it into the little vial, and it was a little bit smelly, but it wasn't too bad. I stood up and I was heading back to my car, kind of sad, because I wanted to know this creature, right? I cared about it. I stumbled over a pile of poop. And I looked down. And of course, I still have my gloves on because, you know, I don't do any nasty work without gloves. I grabbed a stick and I started to stir around in that poop. And I started to see her story. I started to see the fact that she had been eating persimmons, because there were the seeds, right? I saw some hair, and so I started to think, what was this? I saw a little bit of a bone. I saw this and I saw that, and it made me ask questions. And that is what's turned into Who Gives a Poop? The surprising science from one end to the other. Because kids and adults, when you ask questions and you're not afraid to follow them, even into the poopy zones, you discover something amazing. And I hope that you will go out and take the time to do that too. You can learn more at my website. Show you something? Yeah, Heather? Go for it. That's the end of the show.
Look at this picture.
That I have.
I'm in downtown Boston. I'm riding my bike, and what does it say?
Beware of coyotes. Yes. Yes.
That's in downtown Boston. That's only a mile from my house.
Well, there's a whole chapter in Something Rotten about that scientist and about how I was collecting the poop and all of that crazy stuff. And it's amazing what she's learning from looking at the DNA. She's bringing up really tough questions about coyotes.
If I find a coyote, should I call you and cut the tongue out and mail it to her?
I'm not coming all the way to Boston for a coyote tongue. Sorry. Wish I could do that, but you could do that. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing science. In fact, there is a lot of really cool citizen science that kids can do that relates to the roadkill. And I have some of that on my website if kids are interested in doing some of their own stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of roadkill science that's dangerous. But one really amazing thing is everybody can look and take a picture of an animal that's hit on the side of the road. And you would think, so what, that's not important? No, it is. When we take pictures and document where roadkill is happening, we can upload that, and there's programs that are actually using citizens to track where roadkill happens. And little did you know that there's hot spots. And once we know where there's hot spots where roadkill happens over and over and over, we can actually redesign roads to prevent it. And that saves animals, but it also saves people's lives. There's some really cool engineers designing bridges for animals to go over. There's some cool people who are designing tunnels. There's a cool group of people here in Alabama that know where salamander hotspot is. It only happens when the salamanders are mating, like that happens like just for a short period of time, only on winter nights that rains. So they closed the road for that time period. But we would have never known it if some people hadn't started paying attention to where it was happening. And so they're saving that species simply by closing one road for a little period of time, because those salamanders are trying to get from the woods to the pond. Sorry, I get so excited when I talk about these things, right? You got some questions for me, Jerry?
I bicycled across the United States.
Oh,
I did. It took me
I'm
77
jealous.
days. I did it over 6 years. 2 weeks, then 2 weeks, then 2 weeks. And I used to photograph roadkill and send it to my kids and say, guess that animal. So there must be something strange about my attraction to roadkill.
No, I think everybody has a roadkill story. Like, we've all looked at it, right? It's so sad. Nobody likes it, but yet for the longest time, and this is in the introduction to that book, for the longest time, it was like there was two of me inside. Every time I'd see an animal that was dead like that, I'd be like, so like, oh, gross, sad, terrible. Wait, it's fascinating. Can I touch it? So like there was this like war, right, inside of me, until I realized, wait, just put your gloves on, do it safely, and you can discover something amazing. It took a long time till I realized that lesson, that in these sad, tragic things, the only way to solve those kinds of big problems is to actually look at the really hard stuff, right? To go into the grossness and discover.
Okay, you have a couple more questions. Ready?
All right. Yep.
It says, did you pack it in dry ice? I assume the tongue. Did you pack the tongue in dry ice?
That's a great question. No, actually, one of the amazing things is it's a very small segment of tongue, and you can put it in a vial with desiccant beads. So they're basically, you know, like you get little silica packs sometimes that come in a product that you buy, and there's a little white pack that's supposed to keep things dry. It's basically those kinds of beads, and those silica beads will dry it out just enough so that it doesn't.
That was from Jackie. That was from Jackie Hobson. Here's from Lynette Richaud. We have an I wonder wall in school, and we get amazing questions to research. So thank you, Lynette, for telling us that, because other teachers will probably now start having a wonder wall in their school.
And here's what you can do to build on that. So a wonder wall is an amazing thing, but if you can put something there to wonder about, to start that, to stem that curiosity, a school after I visited, they had this big column in the middle of their library and they didn't know what to do with it. It's kind of in the way. So she created a curiosity column, and she had kids bring in items from nature, and she would put one item up. And that stimulated their curiosity, and kids could put up their questions as they were standing in line waiting to check out books, right? Or they could post to somebody else's question, and their post could be a method for finding an answer. And I thought that was a pretty cool extension. Oh, the wind got my book.
Yep.
That was a pretty cool extension of that. So I love it. I see Steve Swinburne's question. Yes, dead skunk in the middle of the road. It's awesome. My husband thinks that song is hilarious too.
Craig Schroeder asks, do centipedes actually have 100 legs? I think the answer is they have 76 legs, but there's all different numbers. Some have 38, some have 86 or whatever. Do centipedes actually have 100 legs? Well, millipedes might have 100 legs. You know?
See, the thing about centi and milli is that the way they were named was based on the fact that they have a certain number of pairs of legs per segment. So if you look at a centipede, it's got one pair of legs on each segment. If you look at a millipede, it has 2 pairs of legs on each segment. But you're totally right. They're not 100 or a million legs for sure.
Yeah.
They just have a lot of legs. Can you imagine having all those legs? I want to know what it would be like to have that many legs. I'd be tripping all over the place. I can't even handle 2 legs. Nonetheless, all those other legs would be kind of crazy.
Susan asks, I wonder how old the skeleton is. Well, that's from the beginning of the show. I wonder how old the skeleton is.
Wondering about that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was
Is that a
working with
raccoon? Is that
I
a
was working
raccoon?
with a group of kids, and we actually took this skeleton and we made some observations of it, of this skull. And we made some observations, just like we noticed earlier about how long the teeth were and the size of the teeth and the shape of the teeth. And we actually had to count the teeth. And we used this thing called a dichotomous key. Di meaning 2, cot meaning choices. It's a scientific tool that helped us identify this creature. And one of the key characteristics for identifying this skull is right here. Now I can't get oh, there I got the light right. Can you see how this is like a big old arch right here that sticks up? Yeah. In addition to knowing the fact that it had these canines and a bunch of little teeny tiny incisors. And we had to count what they call cheek teeth, all the teeth in here. In addition to those pieces of information, when we had that huge arch, that crest at the top, we could identify it as first an omnivore, because it had this variety of teeth, right? An omnivore has to eat all kinds of different things, so they need different shaped teeth for different types of food. I mean, guys, think about eating corn on a cob. If you didn't have, some good little teeth up here to eat it with, it'd be kind of hard. But this guy, not only does he eat corn on the cob, but he also eats animals, so he needs those guys. So it's an omnivore. It lives somewhere here in Alabama. Its head could fit in my hand. It's a common roadkill here in Alabama. It has a long tail that pretty much has no hair. Well, you think it has no hair till you find a roadkill one and you pick it up and you discover its hairs all over its tail. But someone out there wants to know, someone has identified it, some kids have identified it there in the chat. I see they'd identified it as a opossum, and they are 100% correct.
Good job.
Yay, good job, you guys. So it's been great hanging out with you, Jerry.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're terrific.
We have a lot of fun.
So, we could go for hours, couldn't we?
We could.
We've been almost an hour, so I wanted to tell everyone, thank you for watching today. Thank you, Heather. We love having you on. We hope to have you on again. And all you teachers, we wish we were in school. We wish we were visiting the schools, but we're not. But we decided we'd have a show, and you kids could learn about children's book authors and learn a little nature while you're home learning. So thank you, everybody. And thank you to Jamie and Mary Alice, my secret weapons that are in the background there somewhere. And Heather, you were terrific to come on.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Hey, I had a great time. People, just so people know, they can find more at heatherlmontgomery.com. Also, I have read several chapters of Something Rotten on my YouTube channel. You can go there, and if you like audiobooks, you can check them out.
I would love to go there. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to read it. Yep,
Excellent.
heatherlmontgomery.com. Great. And thank you. Oh, someone asked about the first skull. Do you want to tell anyone what the first skull is?
I'm gonna leave that a mystery because I'm writing a book on that one.
All right, we'll leave it a mystery.
You gotta wait for the next book.
Great.
stuff. Thank you, Jerry,
All
so
right.
much for having
Bye-bye.
me.
Bye from Boston. Bye,
Bye-bye from
Alabama.
Alabama.